Good afternoon. Lovely scene. Let me start off with this. I've wanted to say this for a long time. So I'm going to say it. Bid farewell to the alpha male leadership style. Yeah. No, wait a minute. These are alpha males, but they're not humans. And they all act in pretty much the same way. Now, when I'm talking about an alpha male human leader, some of them kind of act like this. You know, they sit at the head of a long rectangular table with a big fat tie and a belly that overlaps their belt. And they will raise their eyebrows, pound the table, bare their teeth, and roar until they get their way. And they always do. So what in your imagination does a human alpha male leader look like? Well, put that image right there. Now, we've done a lot of research on leadership characteristics, and of course, we looked at the alpha male. And these are just a few of their characteristics. They're bold, domineering, achievement-focused, competitive, decisive, aggressive, critical, self-centered. Yeah, they can be creative. But this just kind of gives you some idea of their particular leadership style. Now, why would I be suggesting that we bid farewell to this style? I know this is a cliche, but the world is changing. It's getting smaller, thanks to the internet, thanks to tourism, thanks to the media, thanks to immigration. Look at this audience. How many people of different colors are sitting in this audience, from different cultural and ethnic backgrounds, many of whom speak 2 or 3 languages, many of whom in this audience practice different traditions, customs, ceremonies, and rituals. All you have to do is go to a bus station, train station, an airport terminal, a shopping mall, or walk down a busy street, and you'll see people of all colors, speaking different languages, wearing different clothing, interacting with one another in very culturally stylistic ways. And this is happening more and more and more. And then, if you happen to be in a big shopping mall, you'll see all these restaurants from countries that we never knew existed serving food that really smells good. Well, if that's changing, then you probably suspect that people from different cultural backgrounds also follow people who lead differently from one another. So, let me give you an example. This is Diane. Diane grew up in a small Alaska Native tribal village. Loving family, loving community, steeped in the traditions of the tribe that go back for centuries. Early on as a child, it became readily apparent to her parents and the elders in the village that Diane was special. She had a gift. She was going somewhere. She was going to make a mark. She graduated high school very quickly, then college very quickly, then graduate school very quickly, and got into the research world, got research grants, published article after article, conducted research in her labs that were producing some phenomenal findings. She belonged to a very large organization. They noticed her. The board of trustees were talking one day, and they said, maybe it's time we change who is the president of our organization, because in the past we've always had men. So they started talking about Diane. And they agreed to approach her, and they did. And Diane was a little taken aback. She was flattered, honored. But she told them, no, I can't accept your offer. Thank you, but I'm not ready. Well, they were disappointed, and some of them all of them being males, they said, well, let's try another strategy. So they did, and they returned to visit with Diane a couple of weeks later and put out the same proposal again. Diane listened carefully, attentively, and this time she said, give me some time. I need to go back to my village in Alaska and talk with my family, to talk with the elders, to talk with the spiritual people, to get some advice. And she did. She came back and she called a meeting of the Board of Trustees, and they showed up, and she told them that she would accept their offer. They were elated. Not soon thereafter, Diane started talking with people, the custodians, the clerical staff, the lab technicians, the salespeople who came by to sell equipment, the junior researchers, the senior level researchers, the academics in her field that were part of the organization. And all the while that she was talking with each one of these, almost on an individual basis, she also made another decision. She decided to remodel the meeting room. She got rid of that long rectangular table, with the chairs around it, and she put in a round one. And then around the large round table, she put smaller round tables with chairs around them, so that when people came in for a meeting, they had to face each other. There was no one who stood out, as often happens when you have a rectangular table. But there were some of the members of the board who were a little uneasy. Things weren't happening quickly enough. They had projects to complete, goals to meet, proposals to write. So they approached her, at least a few did, and said, you're taking too much time. We need to see some things happening. And she said, please be patient. She looked at him and said, look, you asked me to be the president of this organization, and I only know one leadership style. And that's a leadership style that I was introduced to as a child in my small village in Alaska. And that leadership style lasted for thousands of years. And I'm using that style. And you know what? It seems to be working. So be patient. And they were. And indeed, it did work. They achieved all their goals. They got all the proposals written and approved. But more than anything else, the level of enthusiasm ratcheted up. People were excited. They looked forward to staying late in the laboratory and experimenting with X, Y, and Z, and talking with one another and collaborating with one another. This organization never saw anything like it. That's what one culturally unique leadership style can do when given the opportunity. Let me take a few moments to introduce you to three of a lot of different culturally unique, culturally specific leadership styles. This is the Taoist model. Obviously, it's Asian or Chinese in origin. And essentially, and it's roughly translated to mean non-action or actionlessness. The leader actually encourages everyone to participate. Everyone. That leader also is very altruistic, modest, adaptable, flexible, clear, transparent, soft but strong, kind of like bamboo, strong but flexible, multiple uses. Another metaphor might be a Taoist leader is like water. You pour it into any kind of vessel, and it takes the shape and the form of that vessel. That's the Taoist leader. Next, we have the silent or individual or indivisible leader. This person really, really believes that everything and everyone is connected to everything else. And they value that. But in addition to valuing that connectedness that exists between people, they take the time to listen to everybody. And it could take a long time. They tend to push from behind. They're not out in front. So they're behind. And they're often reluctant to assume the leadership role. They don't grow up saying, I'm going to be the leader of this organization or this company or this community. No, that's not in their thought at all until somebody comes up and says, we think you might be the ideal person. What's interesting about the individual or indivisible leader is that she takes a great deal of pride in seeing the people experience the joy of achieving success. That they're the ones, not he or she, who may be that silent leader. It is the joy that people are feeling and expressing about their successes. Finally, for now anyway, we have the benevolent paternalistic or maternalistic leader. This is an egalitarian style of leadership. The leader she sees the community as a large, extended family. Everyone's related. They will seek out skills. They will know the skills of everybody in the organization, in the community, in the group, and make sure that those skills are put to use to the betterment of the goals and missions of the organization or the community itself. They value consensus building. Nope. We're not going to do anything until everybody agrees. They tend to be elders. So there are three distinct but somewhat overlapping, culturally unique leadership styles, all of which, by the way, go back for thousands of years. They all work. My colleague, Jean Lao Chin, and I have been working in this area of leadership for a number of years. And a few years ago, she started identifying all the characteristics of leaders that appeared in print and also interviewed lots of people from lots of different cultures. How would you describe leaders in your culture? So she compiled a long list. And then she gave me the list, and so I sat down with a group of students, and we started to add to the list. But we decided the list was too long. So what we did was we started to sort these characteristics into different piles, and we also used a statistical algorithm or a program to help us identify similar content. We came up with these 6. So leaders can be constructive, leaders can be imaginative, leaders can be principled, leaders can be synergistic, leaders can be virtuous. Then, what we did was, or I should say what Jean did, was she asked 100 ethnic minority male and female leaders in this country to take a look at these lists. And they said, and she asked them, she said, look, which of these do you find to be most important? Which of these lists of 63 characteristics best describe your style? Majority said adaptability, integrity, authentic, honest, communicator. Then she said, which are the least important? And what they rejected was that guy that you put in the photo on the second slide. Aggressive, conflict inducer, dominant, self-centered, status conscious. They rejected those. So then one of my students and I last fall here at Western took those 63 characteristics and we administered them to a little over 100 undergraduate students, most of whom were or are of your American background, did the same thing. Those were the leadership characteristics that these young people said were most important to them, and those were the ones that were least important to them. So you can see why I can say with confidence, adios to the alpha male human leader. Now, this brings up three questions. Who are you willing to follow? What kind of leader are you going to be? And what could we have if we welcome different leadership styles? What could we have? Now, this is a lovely graphic, and it actually is a graphic that Jean-Lal Chin and I chose to be on the cover of our book titled Diversity in Leadership. It's been expanded by a friend of ours, and you can see that it's origami birds of different colors. And they're all converging to this place. Call this Mother Earth. Call this our place. And notice that as these birds fly to this place, they still keep their same colors. So metaphorically, they're keeping their values, they're keeping their traditions, they're keeping their customs, they're keeping their life ways, they're keeping their thought ways. And they're still interacting with one another. So in a place like this, what we're seeing is culture and diversity being valued, being appreciated. We're also seeing or imagining that people follow different leaders and people lead differently. And those styles are embraced. But also what we see is no ceiling. That everyone who converges onto this place that we call Mother Earth has an opportunity to realize their dreams, to succeed in their chosen professions. But the most important thing about this image is that it's teeming with respect. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your presence.